The WNBA has created the magical storyline. It's official, the Indiana Fever just broke the WNBA. In a matter of days, they went from playoff hopefuls to championship favorites, and fans and the media are losing their minds. But not everyone's celebrating. There's a growing crowd like Jason Whitlock convinced that this is all part of a master plan. They're suggesting the WNBA is pulling strings behind the scenes, setting up Caitlin Clark for instant success with a super team, and get this, creating a racial rivalry to boost ratings. There are lots of theories floating around right now, most of them rooted in jealousy, drenched in hypocrisy, and sprinkled with wishful thinking. But there is a common thread tying all of the madness together. Stick around, because the mental gymnastics the haters are doing right now are off the charts. But first, subscribe if you think the Fever are winning it all this season, okay? So the Fever didn't just make a splash in free agency, they unleashed a deep impact grade tsunami. Let's break down their acquisitions, because based on the intense reactions, they've transformed the Fever and could very well impact the trajectory of the WNBA. Let's start with Natasha Howard, a three-time champion and former Defensive Player of the Year, who knows how to put points on the board. Then you've got Duana Bonner, a two-time champion and six-time All-Star, who, like Natasha, is a consistent scorer and tough defensively. With these two alone, the Fever just got much better on both ends of the court. Not only does Caitlin, the assist merchant, have more offensive options at her disposal, the Fever's second-to-last ranked defense just improved dramatically. And then you've got Sophie Cunningham. Her sharp shooting will help the team spread the floor and create space for their stars to operate, and she's not afraid to mix it up between all these moves. The Fever just got a lot tougher to play against. Here's where it gets really interesting. The Fever managed to pull off all these moves while keeping their core intact. They re-signed Kelsey Mitchell, who put up 192 points per game last season, and still have All-Star Aaliyah Boston, who will only get better. They've got the offense, the defense, the championship pedigree, the young guns, and of course the biggest female athlete in the world. So naturally, everyone's talking championship, because with this roster, that's suddenly a very real conversation. The Fever have gone from a playoff bubble team to a legitimate title contender overnight. We're not just talking about making noise in the playoffs anymore, we're talking about a team that could go all the way. But hold on, because not everyone's celebrating. Some fans and analysts are crying foul, calling the Fever a super team and saying the WNBA is rigging things for Caitlin Clark. But is that really fair? Because let's be real, this isn't the first time we've seen a team make big moves in free agency. But the reaction this time, it's on another level. The WNBA has manipulated their offseason. There's a growing chorus of skeptics asking the million-dollar question: how did a small-market team like the Fever pull off such a massive coup? Some, like Jason Whitlock, suggest the league had a hand in orchestrating this whole thing. It's a bold claim on its own, but it's his reasoning that's got so many fans up in arms. They've got conflict between they've created it. And I know there are black players on the Indiana Fever, but they've created conflict between black and white. Yep, he's arguing that this isn't just about basketball. It's about the WNBA creating a racial rivalry for ratings. According to Whitlock, the WNBA is trying to manufacture a Bird versus Magic dynamic between Caitlin Clark and A'ja Wilson. Somehow, by the Fever leveling up their roster, this is now a rivalry. Now, this take wasn't well received, with many fans calling out Whitlock for creating a divisive narrative that doesn't need to exist. The problem, and why some are believing Whitlock, is that we've heard this talk track before from someone pretty high up in the WNBA, the commissioner. I'm a big studier of history, and I look back to the Bird Magic moment in the NBA in 1979, and it really put the NBA on the map. Kathy Engelbert referenced the impact of the Larry Bird Magic Johnson rivalry multiple times, drawing a parallel to the Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese rivalry in the WNBA. So when you hear the commissioner reference the same thing as Whitlock and the importance of rivalries being crucial to league growth, it's reasonable to think that the league would at the very least want a similar rivalry for perspective, and it's tough to imagine now. But back in the late 1970s, the NBA was hurting. Attendance was down, TV ratings were in the gutter, and basketball was far from America's favorite pastime. But then something magical happened, or should I say magic happened. The arrival of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird in 1979 wasn't just a breath of fresh air, it was a Cat 5 hurricane that blew through the NBA. These two rookies didn't just play basketball, they redefined it, and here's where it gets interesting. Their rivalry wasn't just about what happened on the court, it was a story that captivated America. You had Magic, the flashy point guard representing the glitz and glamour of Los Angeles, going head-to-head with Bird, the no-nonsense forward from small-town Indiana. It was Hollywood versus Heartland. And as Whitlock and Engelbert alluded to black versus white, the NBA recognized the gold mine they were sitting on, and boy did they cash in. The league went all in on promoting this rivalry. Primetime games became must-see TV. The media coverage was relentless. Every matchup between the Lakers and Celtics was hyped like a heavyweight title fight. And guess what? It worked. TV ratings soared. Arenas were packed. Suddenly basketball was cool again. The Celtics and Magic dominated the 80s and set the foundation for Michael Jordan and the stars who followed. Now fast forward to last year. The WNBA was growing, but let's be real, it hadn't exactly set the world on fire. Enter Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, college rivals. It was almost too perfect, and the league forced that rivalry down our throats. Their matchups were among the most watched games of the year. But if we're being honest with ourselves, pretty much every game Caitlin played was among the most watched games of the year. As the season went on, though, you could just tell Angel and Caitlin weren't on the same level. Caitlin was setting records left and right, and after the Olympic break, she scored around 23 points per game. Yes, Angel had all those double-doubles, but she was also notorious for missing layups as their teams went in different directions. Their rivalry fizzled out faster than a sparkler on the 4th of July. Now people think the league is shifting to a Caitlin versus Asia rivalry. On the surface, it makes more sense. Statistically, they're both powerhouses, and now with the Fever's recent upgrades, both have strong supporting casts. But here's where we need to pump the brakes a bit. True rivalries can't be manufactured in a boardroom. They're born on the court, forged through intense battles and playoff showdowns. The Magic Bird rivalry wasn't great because the NBA said it was great because these two legends pushed each other to the absolute limit year after year. Those guys had history. Thanks for watching and subscribe my channel.